Hi, everybody. So I thought I would talk about a pretty common issue when men have an anxious wife and what to do about that and how to handle that, especially once you have children, right? Because anxiety transmits itself to children. When a parent is anxious, the child is going to be anxious. The parent is telling them how to view the world. They're telling them that you're supposed to be scared of a lot of different things. So, of course, the child learns from the parent. It goes without saying. It's almost impossible to have an anxious parent that does not have a child that's somewhat anxious. Even if the child is temperamentally laid back, the parent is telling the child to look at the world a certain way, you see? Like, so the child may be kind of a laid back child, but then the parent says, we don't touch anything outside the house because there's too many germs. That's what the kid thinks is normal, right? The parent is telling that to the kid. So even a child who is not temperamentally designed to be anxious will end up being anxious if there's an anxious parent. Of course, women are usually the primary caretaker. They're the ones who are usually home with the kids if somebody is. And there's higher rates of anxiety in women, which is why I say when your wife is anxious. But of course, if your husband is super anxious and he's with the kids a lot, then that's going to transmit itself to them as well. It's a terrible burden to have anxiety, right? It's really hard on you. You view the world as a dangerous place. You feel very constricted in what you can do and can't do. You're always kind of jealous of people that seem to be rolling with the punches more. And so this isn't a burden that you want to pass on to your kids. So you need to get your wife or your husband, if that's the case, into couples counseling. They usually won't go into individual counseling because they say that there's no problem, that they're just somebody who over prepares and is realistic about risk. But if you see that it's anxiety, or your therapist, when they hear you talk about it, says that's anxiety, right? Or you research and you pretty much think it's anxiety, then you got to get them in to couples counseling. Because remember, a woman who's really anxious about the kids does not want an unhappy home. They certainly don't want a divorce. So they have to do it. These people who say, like, my spouse won't go to couples counseling, you haven't said it's basically this or we are headed in a very bad direction. You know, people who are with very anxious partners are usually codependent with them. So they try to remove all the obstacles. They try to make them so happy. And send me a like if you're watching this broadcast. And they basically become enablers. So then when they say to the person, do you want to go to couples counseling? They say, no, I don't. I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that. Why do you want to do that? Then they do what they usually do, which is just back down. So that's why the person doesn't end up in couples counseling. It's because the enabler brings it up once or twice and just backs down. You know, they're not ready to take a stand on behalf of their children. Even if you don't take a stand on behalf of you, you got to take a stand on behalf of your kids. If your partner is struggling with anxiety, depression, PTSD, anything, right? You got to take a stand on behalf of your kids. This is what children remember. Yeah, mommy was like so anxious that she was like upset all the time, but dad didn't do anything about it. Why? Why didn't dad do anything about it? You know, and you don't want to be in that situation when your kids are thinking about their life later on. So when people get into treatment, they can see what is anxiety and what's not. So if you get into couples therapy, then the couples therapist, if one partner is very anxious, they're going to bring it up, okay? They're going to say, it sounds like some of what you're thinking about will happen to the kids is in the realm of anxiety and is unlikely. And these thoughts are pretty extreme, and you have anxiety, generalized anxiety or panic or social anxiety or whatever, and you could benefit from individual treatment. So when an expert says it instead of you, then they may take it more seriously, especially because anxious people are terrified of doing the wrong thing. So here's the one area where that can help, right? An expert tells them that they would be a better parent if they treated their anxiety. So they may do it. You know, they may do it because then they're scared that they would be a bad parent if they didn't do the thing that the experts said. So this is where anxious people can be the best students of therapy. And then, of course, over time, they can really get on board for themselves. But even if they're just trying to do the right thing because they're scared to do the wrong thing, then that can be an impetus for them to begin working on their anxiety. So if your kids are scared of everything all the time and they always have to be near you and they're worried about health stuff and germs and death and they can't, if they see certain things on TV, it's like terrible and and you're watching what you say to them because they get so anxious so easily. And you got to look at your partner, if not yourself. You could also be the anxious presence, right? But you got to look at your partner, and you'll probably see the exact same behaviors, but just on an adult level. So the adult in this video that I'm doing, your wife, would be scared of the same amount of things, doesn't like to see upsetting things, doesn't want to ever talk about upsetting things, has little rituals and routines to self-soothe all the time, right? So, and send me a like if you are watching this live broadcast, which later will not be live, but please do send a like if you're watching. And you could give me any questions that you have. This is a topic close to my heart. I was raised in an anxious home, and it was really, really hard. Because I was a little kid with anxiety, bad anxiety, and it didn't really ameliorate at all until I got out of the house, and then anxious things stopped being told to me. There weren't as many things that were dangerous. Nothing, whatever I thought was dangerous, and over time you can make that, you can make a very different life for yourself, particularly if you're interested in changing. But kids can't get out of it. They're a fish in water. If the water is filled with anxiety, they will be filled with anxiety. That's just the culture of their home. So if you want to change the culture of your home, that's really what you're doing. By making your partner admit that there's an issue, or at least get into couples counseling where somebody else can say, wow, you're really pretty anxious and you need help with this. So you are going to try to change the culture of your home from fear-based to something that is positive, to that the world is a fun place, the world is a good place, from the world is a bad place, and the only one who can protect you from it is me, and you need protection. And I wrote a post about this, about parents who say my kid is scared to go to sleep without me. No, if you've said anything like that, then yeah, your kid's going to go to sleep with. So there's different ways to handle the same thing. So in an anxious home, the kid says, I don't want to go to sleep. And first I'll do it in a non-anxious home. The kid says, I don't want to go to sleep. And the parent says, yeah, but you got to go to sleep. It's your bedtime. Bye. I love you. I'll read you a book and then I got to go. Now's my time to watch TV with daddy. And then I got to go to sleep. So you got to go to sleep, right? In an anxious home, the parent, well-intentioned, but very unhelpful, the parent says, are you scared of the dark, buddy? Are you scared to go to sleep? Don't worry. You're safe. I'll always be here taking care of you and looking out for you. I know the dark is scary. The kid didn't say any of that. The kid doesn't think any of that. This starts to be told to kids before they could even speak in a lot of anxious households, because the anxious person who learned this in their own home is scared of a lot of things. So they're trying their best to empathize with their child, which is a great thing to try to do, except if you're inflicting a way of thinking that would not otherwise be there. So for anxious parents, there's a whole rhetoric of safety and danger and protection that shapes the child's entire worldview. If your mom thinks that you should be anxious about going to sleep, you best believe you're going to be anxious about going to sleep, because you're a good little mammal. And what you do in all mammal species is you learn from your mommy about the world. Well, what's going on here? The mommy is saying that the way that you are supposed to feel, that she predicts that you feel, that she's trying to help you with, is that you're scared to go to sleep alone. Going to sleep alone is a bad thing. The dark is bad. It's totally understandable to think you need extra protection. Now, if the mom did not have that perspective, then the kid wouldn't think that. They would think, I don't like to go to sleep. I'm bored. I wish I could do some other stuff. That would be and so people with ADHD, right? So the dad with ADHD, when he's parenting, he'll do it through his lens. He'll be like, yeah, I know it's boring to be in here. I guess we could play another video game. Because he identifies with the kid, and he identifies, man, I hate laying there with nothing to do. So he ends up maybe not doing the right thing either. Kid goes to sleep too late. They're not scared of the world, but they got some other problem. They don't go to sleep on time because the ADHD parent basically over-identifies with the child. All of this is over-identification with the child, right? And transmits their own worldview. Thank you, Jack, for the stars. Thank you, Martin, and thank you, Sam, for all the nice compliments. And send likes if you're watching, guys. But the child is internalize as the parent's worldview. So maybe the best worldview isn't boredom is terrible either, right? And it's also not the world is scary. So couples counseling, specifically with somebody who focuses on parenting help, can really help you strike a happy medium here, you know? More and more treatment for anxious children, by the way, is focused on the parents. Thank God. I've been saying this for over a decade, right? A decade and a half, right? That the only way really to treat an anxious kid fully and wholly is to treat the parent, because the parent is transmitting the worldview, the perspective. And feel free to share this, you know, with your anxious partner. And if they don't like it, you know, big shit, because you're likely an enabler. You're an enabler that a lot of men have an anxious wife and they just treat her basically like a child. And not in a good way, not in like the way that I say, oh, everybody is each other's parent and peer and child and we can reparent each other. No, like a child where they basically like protect her from any bad feelings, except guess what? You can't protect another adult from bad feelings. All you could do is turn yourself into a pretzel trying to figure out ways that she's never sad, and then she's even sadder because she never builds up any tolerance. Because remember, what treats anxiety is exposure therapy. That's exposure to bad feelings and bad thoughts as well, right? To feared thoughts. Because anxious people have a lot of superstition, a lot of feared thoughts, you know? They don't put it in the realm of superstition, but it very much is. Like if I tell my child that I love him constantly, then if I die, he'll always know that I love him. This is something I hear from anxious parents, right? It's a nice outcome. I love you, but picture the tone of the I love you when it's said out of that fear, right? It's dramatic. It's burdensome. It's even histrionic at times. It's something that makes the child a little anxious about hearing I love you. Whenever anything is motivated purely by fear, that is not what you want to teach your child, right? And it's totally adaptive evolutionarily for us to have strong fear responses, because as a species, we used to be under threat all the time. There used to be tigers. There used to be predators. There used to be a lot more death. But nowadays, it's maladaptive for a child in a middle-class home that has no existential threat to his survival at all to be basically trained to be scared by things like the dark or sleep or being in a different room than a parent or pooping. I mean, like there's like a lot of stuff here out there. So, you know, peeing, going to a bathroom. I read a Scary Mommy article that I about the pee and poop thing, about a kid who had never gone to the bathroom by himself, even at like a cousin's house or like anybody's house that wasn't his own house. So then he got to school and he wet himself because he didn't know to go to the bathroom by himself. He didn't even know it was possible. A 5 or 6 year old age child, he didn't know it was possible to go to the bathroom by himself without his mother, because his mother always comes to the bathroom. So he's comfortable. And remember, that's the key word that we're dealing with a lot of anxiety, comfortable. So that's like the trump card nowadays. Don't let that be the trump card in your marriage. Somebody says that makes me uncomfortable. That's how people end up in sexless marriages for like 10 years, more. That makes me uncomfortable. Makes me uncomfortable to talk about that. Makes me uncomfortable to do it. Makes me uncomfortable. And then they start with your children. And there's no malicious intent. This is how they view the world, right? But comfort is king. Comfort cannot be king. That's not how you live your life. So I hope this was useful for you guys. Reach out if any of you need therapy or coaching. I have a lot of people working for me that can help with anxiety, myself as well, obviously. You could just message me or info@bestlifebehavioralhealth.com. Anyway, Mark says, yes, exactly, Mark. This is how bug phobias are transmitted, germ phobias, so much. Like kids end up with any sort of phobia. Why? Because a parent was scared of the thing, you know, usually. All right, I got to go, guys. Thanks for listening. Send likes. Bye-bye.